The classroom smelled faintly of gun oil and dust. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a cold glow over the rows of recruits seated at long metal tables. On the tables lay neatly disassembled M4 carbines, their black parts scattered across white cloth mats like puzzle pieces waiting for hands that knew what they were doing. Most of the recruits sat upright, shoulders squared, postures rigid. They were Marines in training, young, hardened, or at least pretending to be. They carried the air of men who had something to prove, every movement sharpened by the silent competition of who could be the toughest, the fastest, the most lethal. And then there was Anna. Anna wasn't like the others. She didn't swagger. She didn't carry herself like she was already a warrior. She sat with her hands folded on the table, eyes fixed on the weapon in front of her, not with boredom, but with a kind of fascinated intensity. While the others had tried to impress the drill instructors by slapping magazines into rifles and clicking bolts with loud confidence, Anna had done the opposite. She had leaned forward, brow furrowed, and asked questions. Too many questions. "Why is the extractor designed this way?" she had asked in a soft voice, pointing at the small hooked piece of metal as if she were studying a museum artifact. A couple of the recruits had snickered. One muttered under his breath, "Because it pulls bullets out, genius." But Anna didn't blush or shrink back. She asked another question. "Why does the firing pin retaining pin bend slightly instead of being perfectly straight? Wouldn't that make it weaker?" More laughter, louder this time. A burly recruit with a square jaw and buzz cut leaned over and said, "Sweetheart, you planning to write a book or shoot a rifle?" The instructor, a grizzled gunnery sergeant with 30 years in the Corps, cleared his throat. "Knock it off, Stevens." But even he was hiding the trace of a smile. He wasn't used to recruits asking why. They were supposed to say yes, Gunny, and no, Gunny, and move on. But Anna didn't move on. Her curiosity was relentless. The truth was, Anna hadn't grown up around guns. She hadn't hunted deer with her father or spent weekends at shooting range. She hadn't even touched a rifle until 3 months ago. What she had done was read. She devoured manuals, schematics, even military history books at the library, where she worked part-time before enlisting. And now, sitting in front of her first real carbine, she wanted to know everything. Every spring, every pin, every function. The men around her didn't see that. They only saw someone who didn't fit in. When the break was called, the recruits filed outside into the sweltering afternoon heat. Cigarettes flared to life. The air filled with laughter, trash talk, and the kind of brutal teasing that forged bonds between those strong enough to endure it. Anna walked out last, notebook in hand, scribbling notes while she walked. "Hey, bookworm," one of them called. "You gonna shoot us a paragraph?" The laughter rolled again. Anna smiled faintly but didn't answer. She was used to it by now. They didn't understand that she wasn't there to impress them. She was there to understand the rifle as if her life depended on it, because one day it would. And one day soon, the questions would stop being funny. The challenge came 3 days later. It started as a joke. During evening cleaning, after the day's drills had left the recruits drenched in sweat and smelling of cordite, the burly Marine, Stevens, watched Anna carefully lay out her rifle parts again, each one in perfect alignment, as if she were conducting surgery. He grinned. "Hey, bookworm, bet you can't put that thing back together with your eyes closed." The room erupted with laughter. A few of the recruits clapped their hands, egging him on. Anna didn't even look up. She just said quietly, "Why not?" Stevens blinked. He hadn't expected her to agree. "All right," he said, grabbing a spare cleaning rag. He tossed it to her. "Blindfold. Right here. Right now." The recruits formed a circle, chairs screeching against the floor as they gathered around. Some pulled out phones to time her. Others leaned in close, eager to watch her fail. Anna tied the rag tightly around her head, plunging herself into darkness. She breathed slowly, evenly, hands resting just above the scattered parts of her rifle. And then she began. Her fingers moved delicately at first, feeling the shapes, the edges. She touched the firing pin, rolled it between her fingertips, and set it in place. She slid the bolt in her palm, her thumb brushing over the extractor as though greeting an old friend. The room, once filled with mocking chatter, grew quieter. Stevens folded his arms, trying to look unimpressed. "She's just guessing," he muttered. But she wasn't guessing. Her mind was a blueprint, her memory a map. Every part she had studied, every question she had asked, it had all built to this moment. Click! The bolt slid home. Snap! The retaining pin seated itself with a confident push. Her hands moved faster now, the rhythm smooth and certain. The recruits leaned forward, their skepticism melting into awe. No one laughed. No one spoke. Finally, with one last fluid motion, she slammed the upper and lower receiver together, drove the takedown pin through, and pulled the charging handle back with a sharp, clean snap. She tore the blindfold off. Her rifle was whole again. The silence that followed was heavier than applause. Anna looked around the circle of stunned faces, her expression calm. She didn't smirk. She didn't boast. She simply set the rifle down and said, "When it matters, there's no time to second guess. You need to know it by heart." And then she stood, walked past them, and left the room in silence. For the first time since she had arrived, nobody laughed. The next morning, the air inside the training hall was thick with an energy Anna could feel pressing against her skin. She walked in carrying her rifle, eyes forward, boots hitting the concrete floor in steady rhythm. She didn't need to glance around and know the others were watching her differently now. The laughter had stopped. When she reached her table, Stevens was already there. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by something harder to read. Part irritation, part respect, part stubborn pride refusing to admit either. "Morning, bookworm," he muttered. Anna simply nodded, placing her rifle on the mat. The gunnery sergeant barked orders, and the recruits began another round of weapons drills. Disassemble, clean, reassemble. Over and over, until muscle memory took over. But today, the rhythm was broken. Anna could feel eyes flicking toward her, could hear the silence that followed every click and snap of her rifle's parts. Even Gunny's gaze lingered on her longer than usual. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. She had learned something in that blindfolded exercise. Respect wasn't given by bravado. It was earned in silence, through action. But respect came with weight. By midday, the sergeant had them out on the range. The sun beat down hard, baking the sand under their boots. Targets lined the horizon, black silhouettes swaying slightly in the heat shimmer. Today, Gunny barked, "We test accuracy under pressure. Pair up. One shoots, one times." Anna was paired with Stevens. Of course. He grinned, clearly ready to reclaim his pride. "Let's see if book smarts can hit steel." Anna settled prone, cheek against the stock, eyes narrowing through the iron sights. Her breathing slowed. She squeezed. The rifle cracked. The target's chest rang with a metallic ping. Another shot. Another ping. Her rhythm was steady, almost too steady, like she wasn't fighting nerves or recoil the way new shooters usually did. Stevens' grin faded. She reloaded, continued. 10 shots, 10 hits. When she finally rolled back on her elbows, Stevens stared at her with something close to disbelief. "Where the hell did you learn that?" he muttered. Anna wiped a bead of sweat from her brow. "In books." The recruits nearby chuckled, not mocking this time, but impressed. For the first time, the nickname Bookworm didn't sound like an insult. Gunny called for the next pair, but his eyes lingered on Anna a second longer, as if filing her name away in a mental list. Anna didn't notice. She was busy writing something in her notebook again. That night, long after lights out, Anna sat at her bunk with a small flashlight tucked under her blanket. The others were asleep, or pretending to be, but she was awake, studying diagrams of rifles, reading about stress points, failure rates, field improvisations. It wasn't that she wanted to outshine anyone. It was that she couldn't rest until she understood every detail. "Can't sleep," a voice whispered from the bunk above. It was Morales, a quiet recruit who usually stayed out of the banter. Anna hesitated, then whispered back, "Just studying." Morales peeked over the edge of his bunk. "You're gonna burn yourself out." Anna shook her head. "Not if it keeps me alive later." Morales was silent for a long time. Finally, he said. "They're starting to respect you. Even Stevens. But you know what they'll do next, right?" Anna raised her eyebrows. "What? They'll test you. Not like a game this time. They'll want to see what you're really made of." Anna closed her notebook slowly. His words carried weight. The test came sooner than she expected. 2 nights later, Gunny marched them into the field at dusk. No explanation, no warning. Just rifles, gear, and orders. They trudged into the trees, flashlights bobbing, until the base lights disappeared behind them and the night swallowed them whole. "Tonight," Gunny growled, "you'll run a blind navigation and assembly drill. You'll find your way to 3 markers, disassemble and reassemble your rifles under time, and return here before dawn. Fail, and you're cleaning latrines for a week." Groans echoed. A couple recruits muttered curses under their breath. Anna just tightened the strap of her pack. Her heart thudded, but not with fear, with focus. The team split, fanning out into the forest. The night was damp, smells of pine and wet soil clinging to the air. Crickets chirped, distant owls hooted. The recruits stumbled, cursed, tripped over roots. But Anna moved differently. She counted steps, tracked the stars, listened to the wind in the branches. Every detail mattered. At the first marker, she knelt, laid out her rifle, and worked by touch alone. Her fingers slid over each part, her mind calm. Click, snap, tap. The weapon came together in under 2 minutes. At the second marker, her hands were numb from cold, but she forced herself through it, refusing to fumble. At the third, the ground was uneven, and the forest seemed alive with shadows. A twig snapped nearby, and one recruit cursed, spooked by nothing. Anna ignored it. She finished her rifle, slung it, and moved. By the time she reached the rally point, dawn was just brushing the horizon with pale light. Gunny was waiting. One by one, the recruits stumbled back, sweaty, frustrated, exhausted. Some had failed, rifles still half assembled. Others had made it, but barely. Anna dropped her rifle onto the table in front of him. Fully assembled. Perfect. Gunny checked it, glanced at her, then nodded once. Just once. But that single nod carried more weight than applause. The others watched. Nobody laughed. Not anymore. The weeks passed, and though the recruits had stopped mocking Anna, the air around her still carried a weight of challenge. She had proven herself in precision and discipline, but there was one thing left everyone doubted: pressure under chaos. It came one blazing afternoon on the open training field. The sun scorched down, the ground shimmering with heat waves. The recruits were lined up in full gear, rifles slung, sweat dripping into their collars. Gunny's voice cut through the air like steel. "Today, you'll run live-fire maneuvers. Movement, cover, accuracy. Real rounds. Real consequences. If you freeze, someone gets killed. And that someone might be you." Nerves crackled in the air. Live rounds meant mistakes could turn deadly. Anna's squad crouched behind a dirt berm. Her heart pounded, but her eyes were sharp. The whistle blew, and chaos exploded. Gunfire rattled the air. Smoke bombs hissed, spilling clouds across the field. Recruits scrambled, shouting over each other. Some dug behind cover too early. Others forgot to communicate. Anna felt the rush of adrenaline, but didn't lose herself to it. She moved low, rifle tucked, scanning angles. When Stevens froze in the open, stunned by the chaos, she grabbed his collar and yanked him behind cover just as a burst rattled the dirt where he'd been. "Move," she barked. For a split second, Stevens just stared at her. This girl he used to mock, now saving his skin. Then he nodded, and the two of them moved as one. They advanced in short bursts, leapfrogging cover, Anna firing precise bursts, her shots cracking steel targets. Her breathing stayed steady. Her hands didn't shake. By the end of the course, her squad was panting, covered in dust and sweat. Some had stumbled. Some had panicked. But Anna had not only made it, she had led. Gunny's eyes met hers across the field. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. His silence was acknowledgement enough. Later that evening, as the squad stripped gear and rehydrated, Stevens approached her quietly. "You pulled me out back there," he said, scratching the back of his neck. Anna shrugged. We're a team. That's what you'd have done for me, right? He didn't answer. But for the first time, his smirk was gone. The training cycle should have slowed, but instead, the drills grew harder. Rumors swirled that something was coming, something beyond standard recruit tests. One night, after lights out, Anna overheard two instructors talking outside. Their voices carried through the thin barracks wall. She's got the skill, but she's not ready. She doesn't have to be ready. She just has to prove she belongs. The general will decide. The words lodged in her chest. The general? What do you have to do with them? The answer came 2 days later. At dawn, the recruits were assembled on the range. Standing at the far end was a figure none of them had expected. A decorated general, medals glinting in the morning sun, his expression unreadable. He paced slowly, scanning the line of recruits. When his gaze landed on Anna, he stopped. "You," he said. His voice was low but carried authority that silenced the entire field. "Step forward." Anna's boots felt heavy, but she moved, heart pounding. The general studied her rifle, then her face. "I've heard about you. The girl who asks questions. The girl who doesn't quit." She swallowed. "Yes, sir." He leaned closer, just enough that only she could hear. His words sent a chill racing down her spine. Black Talon. 2 words. Nothing more. But the weight of them was suffocating. She didn't know what it meant. But from the way Gunny stiffened, from the way Stephen's eyes went wide at the sound, she knew it wasn't just a phrase. It was a mark, a test, a door opening, or a trap being sprung. The general stepped back, raising his voice to the recruits. "You'll all run drills today. But he pointed to Anna, she will run a different course. Alone." Gasps rippled through the line. Anna's grip tightened on her rifle. Her mouth went dry, but her voice came steady. "Yes, sir." The general's eyes gleamed with something Anna couldn't read. Curiosity, challenge, maybe even warning. The course was unlike anything she had faced before. It wasn't just shooting or running or crawling. It was endurance under impossible odds. Live fire from multiple angles, smoke grenades, flashbangs, uneven terrain, and simulated civilian hostages scattered among hostile silhouettes. Every step was a battle. Every breath a fight. Her arms burned. Her lungs screamed. Her ears rang from explosions. But her focus sharpened with every obstacle. She didn't just survive the course. She cleared it. When she stumbled back to the line, panting, rifle smoking, the general was waiting. He leaned in once more, his words barely audible. "Not bad, Black Talon. Not bad." Then he walked away, leaving Anna with a weight heavier than any rifle. The general's whisper haunted Anna for days. Black Talon. It wasn't just a phrase. It was a code, a designation. Every time she heard instructors speaking in hushed tones, she wondered if they were talking about her. Sleep came in fragments. She'd close her eyes and see flashes, muzzle fire, the smoke of the special course, the general's cold stare. But she didn't back down. If anything, it sharpened her resolve. The breaking point arrived under the guise of a field exercise. The recruits were told to pack gear for a 3-day endurance mission. No details, no maps, just gear, rifles, and a convoy ride into the wilderness. When the trucks dropped them off, the instructors gave the order: survive, navigate, complete the objectives. That was all. The terrain was brutal. Dense forests tangled with undergrowth, swamps that swallowed boots whole, steep ridges that shredded calves. Recruits stumbled and cursed, their strength bleeding out with every mile. Anna moved quietly, methodically. Her boots cut paths where others hesitated. When one recruit twisted an ankle, she rigged a splint from branches and tape, then helped haul his gear. Others noticed, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. "Who the hell is she? She doesn't quit." On the second night, everything changed. Gunfire erupted from the darkness. Flashes lit the trees. Recruits dove for cover, some panicking, some frozen in fear. Anna hit the dirt, heart hammering. At first she thought it was a drill, blanks, maybe paint rounds. But then she smelled the sharp bite of live powder. This wasn't simulation. "Ambush!" someone screamed. Anna crawled to a ridge, scanning. Shadows moved through the trees, figures in unfamiliar gear, firing control bursts. Whoever they weren't playing games. Her instincts took over. She shouted orders, pulling stunned recruits into defensive positions. She moved from cover to cover, returning fire with short, precise bursts. At one point, she tackled a recruit who froze in the open, dragging him behind a log just as rounds chewed bark overhead. The firefight stretched minutes that felt like hours. Then, as suddenly as it began, the attackers melted back into the trees, leaving silence broken only by heavy breathing. When the instructors arrived, their faces gave nothing away. But Anna noticed something. One of the attackers slipping into the instructor line, his gear just a little too clean. A test. It had all been a test. Gunny's gaze locked on her. He gave the faintest nod, a flicker of respect. That night, around the campfire, the whispers spread like wildfire. She took command. She didn't freeze. She saved us. Anna sat apart, staring into the flames. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't wanted to be anything more than a recruit trying to prove herself. But the general's words echoed again. Black Talon. And she knew, whatever it was coming for her. The final day of the exercise dawned gray and heavy, clouds pressing low against the ridges. The recruits were exhausted, their uniforms caked in mud, their faces lined with fatigue. But before they could pack for extraction, the general himself arrived by helicopter. His presence froze the field. He stepped forward, boots sinking into the damp earth, his gaze fixed on Anna. You, he said simply. Anna rose, her rifle slung, her heart steady despite the pounding in her ears. The general studied her for a long moment before turning to address the recruits. Every class has its standouts. Every class has one who proves themselves not by luck, but by grit, precision, and heart. This time, that one is her. Murmurs rippled through the recruits. Some looked shocked. Some nodded quietly. A few looked resentful, but none dared laugh. The general's eyes returned to Anna. Do you know what Black Talon is? She shook her head. He stepped closer, voice dropping low, though everyone strained to listen. Black Talon isn't just a word. It's an invitation, a path only a handful are ever offered. You've proven yourself capable under pressure, disciplined under fire, and relentless when others faltered. That's what it takes. Not brute strength, not ego, but resilience. The world seemed to still. The recruits leaned in, their breaths caught. Anna swallowed, her throat dry. What happens if I say yes? The general's expression flickered, just slightly. Then you step into a world of missions no one will ever know about. Sacrifices no one will ever recognize. Victories that can never be celebrated. It's a choice few make, and fewer survive. Silence pressed in. Anna thought of the laughter in the barracks, the sneers when she asked questions, the disbelief every time she picked up a rifle. She thought of Stevens frozen in the field, of the recruits she dragged behind cover, of every test she'd survived. Then she thought of the girl she had been, the one who just wanted to learn, to belong, to be taken seriously. Her voice came steady. Yes, sir. For the first time, the general allowed himself the smallest smile. Then welcome, Black Talon. The helicopter blades thundered overhead, whipping the air into chaos. As Anna stepped forward, boots sinking into the mud, the recruits stared in stunned silence. They had laughed at her questions. They had doubted her strength. They had mocked her determination. But now, as the chopper lifted her away, one truth settled among them like iron. She wasn't just another recruit. She was Black Talon, and nothing would ever be the same again.